My name is Crowell, and right now I'm the clean water advocate for a group called Environment America, which basically means I lobby. I am a lobbyist for them in DC, and then I also help do all the strategy work around the country on federal clean water policy and program that we implement on the ground. I can start by just saying a little bit of who I was at Amherst. I played soccer. I was captain of the soccer team in my senior year. Did some with the student government. I was a senator, and then some with the college Dems. I was a triple major, actually, in political science, Asian languages and civ, and women and gender studies, and then ended up writing an honors thesis. So looking back, I think I dabbled in a lot of things, and when I graduated, really had no idea what I was going to do. So by the end of my senior year, so where some of you guys are right now, knew I wanted to do something political, and that was about the end of the story. And went to a number of career fairs and things like that, and then found out about the program that I eventually joined, which is called the fellowship program that Environment America has. It's a 2-year program where you get a lot of intense training on the skills that it takes to be an advocate, to be a lobbyist, to work with the media, and to really be a grassroots organizer. And spent 2 great years doing that, and then afterwards was offered the opportunity that I eventually took down in DC, and now do that full time. And my job is really, exactly as you said, creating policy. So I spend most of my days on the Hill, lobbying, meeting with members of Congress, meeting with their staff, or meeting with the corresponding agencies, so for me the EPA, and working with them on rules and regulations and legislation on how to better protect our environment, or in some cases how to kill legislation that's going to hurt our environment. The next 2 years I'm going to spend a lot of time doing that. And then really doing all the strategy work that it takes to be effective at implementing policy, so figuring out who you have to influence, who you should be meeting with, why you're meeting with them, what's going to influence them, so who do you need to bring with you to those meetings, whether it's health professionals or small businesses. And then being an effective lobbyist, which means knowing your facts and doing the research, and then being persuasive. So that's about as much as I'll get into now, but then I can definitely answer your questions after.
Great, thank you, Piper. Alissa, because you're not here, you're going to be last.
Okay.
So we're going to go to Scott next.
Hi, my name is Scott Ganz. Me and Piper were actually freshman year roommates on the same floor in James.
James.
Yeah.
James. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. I'm sorry.
So I was an economics and political science major at Amherst. I was a failed baseball player, and then I rode crew for 3 seasons. And I really didn't. I guess my other major thing that I did at Amherst is that I ran mass storage for a little while. And I really didn't know what I wanted to do when I graduated. When I was a junior, I had the opportunity to do a internship in DC for USAID, and I liked it a lot. And while I was there, my roommate was going to a lot of conferences at different think tanks, and it sounded kind of cool. So I applied for a bunch of internships at all the different DC think tanks, as well as internships in finance and internships doing lots of other things. And I was studying abroad in St. Andrews in the spring, which meant that I didn't get to do any of the interviews that everyone else got to do. And so I got offered an internship at the American Enterprise Institute and their economic policy group, and I didn't know very much about it, other than that they were really conservative. I didn't think I was that conservative. But I took it, and I had a good summer, and they invited me to come back and work for their head of economic policy studies and working as a research assistant on their tax team. And I spent the next 2 years doing public policy research at AEI in their tax group, and then over the course of my time there, I sort of began as a research assistant, and then I kind of became a little bit more senior, and then by the time I was done, I was promoted to be the program manager of economic policy studies, which is sort of a shorthand way of saying you're like the most senior research assistant. and you sort of help the new assistants as they come in, and you coordinate across the economic policy studies department. So I did that for 2 years, and then I left. So my current boss, I currently work for the Financial Crisis Inquiry Commission, and my current boss is the vice chairman of the commission. Bill Thomas was a visiting fellow at AEI, and when he was appointed to the commission, my sort of 2 years were up. That's about the standard amount of time you'll take at a think tank when you're young, and he took me along with him. So I've spent the past year and a half working for Bill Thomas at the FCIC, which is going to be coming to a close shortly.
Great, thank you. Okay, Alissa, you're on.
Oh, hey everybody. Sorry I couldn't be there in person. I'm doing sort of a whirlwind U.S. visit. I work in Sudan now. I'm actually on R&R, but probably mostly what I'll talk about is the work that I used to do in D.C. But since the others talked about Amherst a little bit, I will say I was a poli-sci major, and I wrote a thesis on democratization movements in Burma, the Philippines, and Thailand. In terms of like extracurriculars, I sang in the Blue Stockings, and with a friend I started Amherst Dance, and also started this thing that I think was only around for a couple of years called Guerrilla Current Events, to put like current events news on all the tables in Valentine. And I lived in Marsh in the Arts House. When I graduated, I knew I wanted to do something international conflict resolution, but I had no contacts and no idea really how to go about that. We're supposed to keep the sort of like between Amherst and now kind of brief. I have a little bit longer time out than the others. I graduated in 2000, so it might be a little bit longer. I apologize.
That's quite all right. Go right ahead.
And one of the things that I found in my own career was that I did a lot of like smaller things that could add up to something bigger later. So actually, after I left Amherst, I went and I was an AmeriCorps member, which I was like, oh, AmeriCorps wasn't like a cool thing to do at the time. And I thought, how could I be doing AmeriCorps? I went to Amherst, this is crazy. But it allowed me to teach conflict resolution in the public school system in Indianapolis. And then I interned at the UN Undersecretary General for Children in Conflict in New York. Then I went back to Indiana and was a fellow at the Center on Philanthropy. I had met some really cool people who had done that fellowship, and they were like, hey, you might like this. So I did that. And then after that, I was like, I should get a real job, where you're a program assistant and then you work your way up. But I couldn't get hired to save my life, probably because I didn't have any Excel or PowerPoint skills. And I asked myself what I really wanted to do, and I decided what I wanted to do was to go to West Africa and work in conflict resolution and study dance. Because at that point I was thinking, maybe one day I'd want to join the State Department and work for something like the Carter Center. And my old boss from the UN, she was part of an organization in Nigeria, and I asked, could I come and intern? I've got a little bit of money saved up, and she said, yes, you can come, and but you should always ask for money. So, they gave me a little piece of money. And I worked at a place called the Center for Democracy and Development in Lagos, Nigeria, and got to do a little bit of peace building training with young people. And then I decided it was time to go to grad school. I've been out of Amherst for 3 years, and so after writing my thesis, I vowed never to get anything else educational done again. I went to a place called the Fletcher School, which is at Tufts, and I concentrated in conflict resolution and comparative political development. When I was there during the summers, I interned at the Carter Center in the conflict resolution program, and then when I graduated, I actually went immediately to Skidmore to do dance and testing. So my life kind of, I love dance, and if people have extracurriculars that they love doing, you got to work hard to make sure you can still do them.